Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast. This week, we are going to be talking about the number of commanders that are being printed every single year. We reached an all-time high this year. There was a tweet that came out that stated that there were 425 new commanders that were made their debut, as in first printing this year in 2022, 25% of the total number of commanders, an average of 1.16 commanders each day. It was a little bit misleading, and we'll get into that conversation very shortly, but just it was a staggering number, and it is unprecedented number of commanders that have been printed this year. We want to discuss whether or not this is something to be alarming. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? And discuss the pros and cons of having such a large number of commanders being printed and what the future will hold in 2023. So joining me for this discussion, as always, is Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive. How's it going, Seth?
I'm doing great, Tomer. How are you? Good to see you. Good to see you.
I'm doing great. I love end-of-year discussions and retrospectives and whatnot. So
I have thoughts. I have thoughts about this one, so I'm glad we're talking about it.
Yes, lots of thoughts. Also joining me with thoughts is Krim, aka the Asian Avenger. How's it going, Krim?
Hi, how you doing? I'm excited. As you had mentioned, it's the end of the year, and boy, what a year it's been. It feels like it's been like 10 lifetimes of releases.
Yeah. Could you even name all the releases that came out this year, Krim? I couldn't.
There were Magic the Gathering releases this year, for sure.
There were many products.
Yes, there were products released this year.
Yes. All right, sweet. Phil, aka Brew's Kitchen. I know you have thoughts as a fresh Commander face as well.
Oh, yeah. Technically,
Sorry,
I'm fresh. It's been over a year now, but yeah,
relatively
I do
fresh.
have thoughts. A lot of legendaries. Although I'm not too sure, actually. You might convince me with whatever your opinion is here if you have good points. So, yeah, we'll see.
I mean, we're all going to try to convince each other, I think, and have a little debate and walk away slightly enriched, as will our listeners, hopefully, for this debate. So, all right. So, kick things off. The tweet that kind of got the conversation going and got it into the discourse.
Tomer, don't we have to shout things out and whatnot, or no?
Yes, we do. Oh my God. Yeah. But before we jump into the discussion, obviously, I forgot like it's a 50-50, honestly, if I remember or not, to point out the ways you can actually support this podcast. First of all, you can like and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast, be it Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, anywhere you're listening to it. If you could do the equivalent of subscribing or liking or whatever, it helps the channel grow. Another way you can help the channel is you can head on over to our merch store, mtggoldfishmerch.com. You can buy deck boxes, deck sleeves, t-shirts, and so much more over at mtggoldfishmerch.com. All right, with that out of the way, let's jump into kind of the tweet that kind of sparked this whole debate. And this was a Twitter user, Magic Data Science, at MTG _DS. And they said that 2022 was a prolific year for Wizards Magic. There was over 10K card variations that were printed. 14% of all Magic cards in Magic's history. And the important part for us is 425 new commanders were debuted. 25% of the total. 1.16 per day. And then the other little tidbit was approximately 18% of all words in all rule texts of all cards ever were printed in 2022. So just lots of word text, lots of text on words or on cards this year, much more than before. However, this I find is a little bit misleading because the 425 number of new commanders, specifically new commanders, basically just counted all legendary creatures that have been printed in the past year, the first printings. And this includes cards that literally cannot be your commander. These are cards that are either Acorn from the Unfinity, so they're not commander legal there, or these are cards that have shown up in, what was the other thing? Not Acorn. Alchemy. Yes, yeah. Alchemy, which literally, it's an arena-only format, and you literally could not play them in Commander because Arena does not support Commander. So those are not Commander cards because they're not Commander legal. So the real number is actually 362, not higher. It's actually a little bit smaller, 362, which is still a lot. It's 22.5% of the total, as opposed to 25%, which is still a staggering number. This is still incredibly high, over 1/5 of the total.
You can play another Commander deck every day of the year if you wanted to, right?
Almost.
That is
ridiculous. It's still staggering. And then also as a comparison, 362 in 2022 is an unprecedented number, even in today's standards, because last year in comparison, in 2021, there was 191 new commanders printed, which is a little bit more than half, but still like, it's a huge difference. It's a huge jump. It's 71 more than last year. The year before that, 2020 was 186, and 2019 was 78, which is a huge jump from 2020. 2018 was 101, and then between like 2018, from like 2017 downwards, you have like 45, like between like 50 and like 8 being printed. Like you can definitely see where like the year, like where Commander started becoming a thing, it was like 40ish to 30ish, and then before that the only big peak was 64 in 2005. Thank you, Kamigawa, which had a focus on legendaries as a theme. And then before that, it's like very, very few. There's like 8 in 2003, 16 in 2002. It's not really a thing, obviously. So this is like a huge number. This is unprecedented. 362 new commanders printed in 2022. And then I want to just bring it to the rest of you all. What do you think about that number? Is this like a lot? I mean, obviously it's a lot in comparison, but is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What's your like initial thoughts about just hearing the number 362 new commanders printed this year?
I mean, it feels like 300. Like it feels like that's a lower number than I thought. Like if I didn't look at the numbers, it feels way lower. It just feels like I think between Secret Lairs, Universes Beyond, all that stuff, only 362. So I didn't do any research prior to this, so I'm going by the numbers that's given to me right here. And wow, not a surprise when Magic has shifted their focus to Commander. So I guess like that's kind of also not shocking to me at the same time.
It's a huge, huge number. And I mean, so I think it's also worth mentioning, which the original tweet kind of mentioned, like just more cards are being printed. So the fact that we're getting so many sets and so many products, incidentally, there's going to be some legends in those sets. So I think we should expect the number to increase because of the amount of products we're getting compared to past years. But this jump is also showing that it's not just that. It's not like they're just printing more sets with the same amount of legends as normal. This huge of an increase, and the percentage, 22 whatever percent of all the commanders in the history being printed in this year out of the game's 30-year history, that's definitely notable. I think my feelings on it are very mixed. I'm sure we'll get into this as we go along. Like there's upside and downside, but I think my immediate takeaway is, how could you ever play with all of these? We play more Commander than most people just because of how we play Commander Clash, where we're each building a different deck every week. If every single one of us every single week played a new Commander from 2022, we would have only gotten through like half of them in our entire year of Commander Clash, playing 4 a week. Like we wouldn't have got close to getting through all of the new legends printed. So if we can't do it that way, the person who's like building one deck a set or one deck a year and updating it, they're never going to get through these cards.
I mean, the goal isn't to play every commander available, obviously.
Maybe not your goal, Phil.
So I don't. So my feelings on this are super mixed. The only thing I can say is, but that is long gone already. When I started playing Magic, it was Onslaught block, and I just checked. So Onslaught block, which is Scourge, Onslaught, and Legions combined, have 13 legends. And when I looked at the list of these cards, this is so nostalgic just to see these pictures. Like as a child, when I opened the booster and there was like Creature Legend back in the day, I was like super hyped, and they looked, even though some of the cards were even bad, it's like it was so special and felt so like impactful to me as a honestly, as a child. I don't know if I would have the same connection to it now. But yeah, this is long gone already. This feeling of Legends being special. So then I wonder if is there any downside to there being so many Legends? And I don't know. Like, even though Ragavan is legendary, they still play 4 of it. So it doesn't really matter for constructed like 60 card play. Not too much, at least.
I mean, that was a question that I had for you guys because I'm not really that well versed in constructed formats. Would you say that the increased number of legends or legendary cards have a positive, negative, or neutral impact in 1v1 formats?
Negative.
Yeah,
I don't think
know.
it's like hugely negative, but I think it is. I think it is a negative impact. I mean, Legends are strictly worse in 1v1 formats because of how the Legend rule works. In Commander, you just like, that's avoided because you're playing Singleton anyway. But in a format where you're playing 4 copies of your best cards, having some of your best cards be Legends, it does change things. And I think there's some in specific that really like stood out to me where like if the card wasn't legendary, it would probably be much more playable. Just for recent commanders, like Lagrella the Magpie is an example. It's kind of a brutal Cathar effect in Bant where it enters the battlefield to exile one of your opponent's things. That being legendary.
Why is that legendary?
Like that makes it much worse in standard. Or Ellis Elcor, the like Blood Artist 2-drop. That doesn't really see any play when you're Blood Artist. You really want to be able to stack up multiples on the battlefield. So I think there's examples of cards that are hurt as far as 1v1 formats by being legendary.
But isn't that balancing the cards? Like the whatever, the Magpie would probably just go infinite with itself if you can have 2 of them and whatever flicker effects, and then maybe it just balances the card. And legendary is an archetype at this point. You can say, oh, it's actually strictly better in legendary decks.
That is true. They've really pushed to make legendary be like a mechanic at this point rather than just a line of text on cards. And we've seen that a ton this year. There's been multiple like legendary matter theme sets where we saw that hugely in Dominaria United, but also Kamigawa has some legend stuff. There was the AFR
Commander decks.
Commander precons or Commander Legend Baldur's Gates. One of those had a legendary theme. So I don't know.
United as well.
Oh, yeah.
Not one of the last Dominaria one.
Dominaria United,
it was like historic and stuff. Yeah.
So I think, I don't know. To me, it's a little funny when I hear Wizards be like, oh, why is Standard not popular anymore? And I'm like, well, I mean, you kind of just fill it full of Commander cards and you're designing for that instead of for Standard itself. So I don't know. I think the impact is not huge. Like, I don't think this is ruining the game or anything for 1v1 formats. But I do think having this many Legends does hurt constructed formats a little bit.
I wonder if is that just going to be this year exclusive kind of thing? Because we did return, like I'm talking 60 card, like strictly 60 card stuff, not supplemental products, because we did return to Dominaria. We returned to, like, we had a Brothers War set. These are all sets known for their iconic legendaries. Kamigawa as well, right?
This year?
That was this year technically. And Capenna, you had the Mob Boss family. So, yeah, like the thing is just, it feels like maybe this year is just going to be a little bit of a spike in legendary creatures and that's because of the sets we've returned to. So I do think that we'll and I'm talking because I agree that like the legendary thing does make playing standard a bit awkward. Like Sheoldred, great card, but like there's this awkward part where you can't play more than one. You have too many clutters up your hands.
Is that a good thing though?
Yes. I mean, that might be a good thing, but like when it comes to constructed stuff, I mean, I want to be efficient with my deck building, and the card is like absolutely cracked, but yet you're seeing deck lists only play like 2.
That's good though. That's what I mean. It might just balance a card. Imagine facing off 2 Sheoldreds.
If Sheoldred wasn't like legendary.
So like, I think legendary is used to balance cards in some cases, but I don't think you can just like attribute all of it to that, because you also have just like some random uncommon that definitely wouldn't break anything, and it's just got legendary tagged on there for absolutely no apparent reason. So there are cases, like I would argue maybe Sheoldred is a case where being legendary is helpful as far as powering it down a little bit because it's so good, but I don't think all legends are like that, because a lot of them are not at that level. And also to Crim's point of like
Urabrask.
yeah, and also to Crim's point of this year being an outlier, it might be an outlier, but I mean, if you look historically, 2021, 191 new legends, 2020, 189, even if this year's an outlier, we're still getting like 10 times as many legends over the last few years as we would have any of the previous years, you know, in the last 20 years of Magic. So even if this is an outlier and we had some legendary themes which push this number really high, I think even the average year now is going to be 200 commanders, 250. Like, it's going to be a big number. Like, I think that 2021 and 2020 show that this isn't like some weird outlier, at least to a huge extent, I don't think.
I think it's also important to note that we now see set. What's it called? They're not standard legal cards, but they come adjacent and set boosters and stuff, and they're primarily legendaries, and they're made to go directly to commander players. I forget what that term is.
Yeah, I don't know if there is a term for that. I call them set booster exclusives, or But
you know what I'm talking about. Like in Dominaria, like the new Dominaria set, we got like all these like legendaries revisited, and we got there like a bunch of new legends through that, and they're not standard legal, then they go straight to commander players. And we saw that also with Brothers War as well. Like these, we get the commander precons, and then we also get these cards that are in booster packs, but they're not standard legal, and they're all legendary stuff, and they're all commander stuff, and that's also propping up the number a lot. And I think maybe going forward, maybe if legendary doesn't matter as a main theme in standard, we'll still get a lot of new legendaries through these drafts or set boosters and collector boosters as well that are going around standard. And I think that's a good thing. Like they won't impact standard, but they go straight to commander players. And yeah.
And also, like, we get commander precons every set now, when in the past we got once a year infrequently. We had a commander legends again this year, which seems like it's going to be a recurring theme, probably not every year, but that was a lot of new legends. So and Crim mentioned, but like Universes Beyond, looking at just like Warhammer, there were 20, 30 new legends there. So there's a lot of non-standard places where legends can be printed. And like, maybe this is jumping too far ahead, but as someone who plays standard and plays commander, I would rather see Wizards embrace that more rather than make every random standard card also a legend. Like, fill commander legends and the precons and the set boosters with it, whatever you want, but actually, like, not every random uncommon in standard needs to be a legend for no reason, I don't think. Like, I don't see the upside in that.
I mean, like, I wish that like, when it comes to commander legend stuff, I don't think you need to add that many legendaries anymore. So I'm hoping when they move forward with the products, I hope they just continue, like, they make spells that are good in commander, but no, like, I think we've got enough legendaries right now. Let's boost the archetypes that those legendaries have created. So I think that would be a cool thing to see from, like, moving forward, at least with the commander legends.
I have a question for you, Tomer. Phil mentioned, like, commanders not feeling as special, or legends not feeling as special. You're kind of the biggest lore person, I think, on the cast, as far as like actually knowing the lore. Is that true? Like, does that ring true for you? Because I'm just thinking of like old sets when like the entire year had like 10 legends, and every legend was like Kamal or Arcana, some like really important to the story epic character. And now legend is like, I look at it to be like, oh, is this card going to be worse in my standard deck? Like, I don't know the story. I think a lot of the legends we get now don't even have stories. In preparation for this cast, I like looked at some of the new uncommon legends from like Dominaria United and tried to Google them to see their lore. And their lore is, it was printed in Dominaria United, and it has like, it's this tribe. It has like one sentence. Like, it's nothing. It has nothing to do with the story. Is that a concern? Like, is that a negative, you think, as someone who's a little bit Vorthosy? Like, does it bother you to see these legends not matter to the story and just like have the legend tag on there?
I think that's one of the one of the big downsides for me in terms of the increase. I agree. Like, there are a lot of legends that basically do not have any lore attached to them whatsoever, and you kind of just have a card that looks cool, and that's basically it. And I do think that's a major downside. By the way, I'm actually okay with the large increase in commanders. I think that might be the against the rest of the table on that one, but I for the most part I'm on board with an increase in commander cards or commanders, eligible commanders. But I do think the fact that a lot of them recently do not have much lore to them. If you look at like the Brothers War, I think that was a good example of legendary creatures already having a lot of lore attached to them, because it's basically a retelling of a storyline that we've seen in the early days of Magic the Gathering, like Antiquities and Urza Saga and everything like that, already fleshed out the Brothers War, and this is basically a retelling of that. And we actually have these novels where a lot of these lore characters actually pop up. Like Thanos is a big lore character in the storyline in the book, so having cards for him is really cool. Feldon of the Third Path, like we don't have that much information on him, but he was a lore character. Third Path was a school of magic that was like outside of the war between Mishra and Urza. So having Feldon as a character, Lauren, his wife, is also an important character. Tokaja, also a very important character. They didn't have cards before, but like people who are like Vorthos people, these people know these characters. Hercule is another one. These people are these are big lore characters in the novels and in the world building of Dominaria. So seeing them is really, really cool. And then also the set boosters like Tetsuo Mozawa and like all these other characters are also pretty big. Ironically, half of them aren't really big because they're all like Legends characters that had no lore or backstory and didn't show up as a character. Like was a Hakan or something, the desert guy. There's no lore behind him. He's just the desert guy. Like he's just there. He never had lore back then. He doesn't have lore now. It's all gravy.
I mean, I mentioned this before, but like way back on maybe it was on another podcast, but that's why there should be a TV show.
So there could
be
more
an
lore.
anime. Yeah, like
cool.
you could add to the lore and make the lore of Magic more rich, because I do think that these legendaries feel cooler if I know there's a story to it, not just random sand guy, like lives in the desert, right? Like hey, that's cool, I guess, but like I don't know the lore behind him, and like there was a lot of intrigue that I had for like example Kaido, just from like the short that they did in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, right? Kaido and Wandering Emperor, and this whole mystery behind the Wandering Emperor, right? So I don't know. I mean, there's definitely a lot of benefit to like making, obviously, to having like lore, and I think they're kind of dropping the ball by just making a ton of legendaries and then not really doing anything with those legendaries either. Like, give me more stories. In like, you could split off and do books and TV shows if you wanted.
Because I mean, yeah. I mean, more lore is definitely good. But wasn't that kind of the original intention of Legends, to have them be like these important characters to the story? Like, isn't that what kind of kicked off the whole Legend thing 30 years ago? I feel like we've just drifted so far away from what Legends were intended to be. I think another aspect of this is like with so many Legends, from a more meta perspective, it's a pretty clear sign that Wizards is printing a ton of cards for Commander. Because why else would they be printing all these Legends that are neutral or a negative for 60 card formats? They're clearly made for Commander. Is there any concern about just like that in general? Like, do we want Wizards? We've talked about this a little bit in the past, but like, do we want Wizards so actively meddling in the Commander format, or do we like the Commander format a little bit better when it organically develops based on cards that were not intentionally designed for it? That's one of the things, like, so one of the things I've done a lot recently is the like, here's a bad tribe or theme, let's give it a busted Commander with card advantage. Like, do we like that? Do we want every tribe to have an Ashko or a Baru, some like crazy busted thing? Or do we want to be scraping around and be like, oh, here's this cool old rat from Kamigawa, like I can build a deck around it. It was useful. It was useless in Standard and every other format, but I can actually play it in Commander. Do we want Ashko to exist and be like, here's the only rat commander you should play ever? Or do we want Edgar to exist and be like, here's the only vampire you should play ever for the rest of Commander? Every other cool one, Baron Sanger, this epic cool character, never play it. Never do it because it sucks. Like, play the busted one that we made specifically to be busted in this format.
I'm so torn because like I'm pro like more legendaries. I'm pro Wizards of the Coast taking an active role in Commander because I think more options is great. But I personally am not the target demographic for these like this is the commander for that deck that you want to build, and it invalidates every other option. Like I love having an archetype and figuring out by myself, like what's a commander that will fit with it? How do I build around it? What are my deck building options and stuff? And me building that puzzle together, like figuring out the pieces that I want and building something out of it. Like my favorite deck is Tribal, and I'm one of the big reasons why I love it so much is because I didn't have a commander for it. Like I just built it myself. Like obviously there's more fun, but it went so much beyond that. And now I have Ur-Dragon as my commander for that. I think the thing that would kill my enjoyment of that deck instantly is if they eventually printed like a precon that was for tribal, and it was like, here's your tribal commander. It is strictly better than all other options. Here are the tribal staples that we have printed for this precon, and go. Like I built a morph tribal deck with Adamar way back when. And as soon as they printed Kadena, I was like, oh, this is awesome. I can finally switch off Animar. I'm so hyped. And I played Kadena a little bit, and I'm like, the deck already built itself. There's nothing for me to do. And I lost interest almost immediately. That said, a lot of people do like that, though. Like, so, I don't know. It's so weird. Like, a lot of people want to be like, I really want Kithkin Tribal to be good, and I can't do it by myself, or, like, I don't have a commander for it. It really needs a little bit of a push. And Wizards of the Coast is like, oh, here, I hear you. You want a Kithkin commander. Here's one that gives you card advantage, and is cheap to cast, and buffs all your Kithkins in the super push. Here you go. Now your Kithkin deck actually works, and you don't have to work too hard to make it work. And people are like, yeah, great, that's amazing. I don't have like 50 hours to brainstorm and research and look through all this card pool and stuff to figure out how to make it work on my own. I just want Kithkin to work. And then Wizards of the Coast is like, hey, voila. Now you don't have to, you can just build it really quickly and it functions. It's great. And I think that's super valuable, but it definitely kills any enjoyment for me because I'm the person who's like deeply invested and knows all the cards and wants to do the research and wants to spend an entire weekend devising how to make something work. And I don't want Wizards of the Coast to like tell me like here's exactly what you do and don't worry about it. So I don't know.
And I guess it probably depends on like how long you've been playing, how enfranchised you are, what you enjoy personally. So I think you're right that it probably varies a bit from person to person. Although I'm a little skeptical of them going to. I think printing 0 cards for Commander is wrong, but I'm also a little skeptical of them printing too many cards for Commander because I worry if you get to the point where most archetypes are, like you were just talking about, have your tribal cookie cutter commander. Like, I feel like that would make the format a lot less replayable over the long run. If it gets to the point where everyone's playing these, like, not precon decks, where it's just like, hey, here's the busted thing, throw the things in that have the same word on them. I feel like that takes away some of the enjoyment because for some people, they really like a big part of Commander is the customization and the deck building and putting in this like these cool things that you find. Like there is a crowd that really loves that aspect of it. And I feel that's the part that I'm afraid is being like a little bit diminished with all these new cards that we're getting added to the format.
Yeah, we also kind of power creeping some of the tribes. Like I feel like sure, whatever Kenrith Shrine deck was a little, didn't really work. But Go Shintai, for example, is like pretty much exactly what Toma explained. Like, oh, here's card advantage and insane support for your niche tribe. And I do like Go Shintai, but I'm kind of worried that we get Sithis situations where we like, oh, it's just like Sithis is so insanely good for enchantments that you should never play another commander if you want to be optimal. And at some point, if we get 300 commanders each year, we have this for every tribe, and then every tribe is like, oh, you play this, and then there was a precon, so 20 cards are specifically made for this deck. And the cool cards you play in Commander are the ones where you dig through a collection or do a Scryfall search and find something like, oh, this fits perfectly with my deck. And this is way more rewarding, at least for me, obviously, if you like just picking up a precon. I like precons, but yeah, at some point I want to build my own deck. And yeah, this getting like just the pieces served to you in a silver plate I mean, we see, is that spoiler official? Did we see another red commander already? So we might have a contender for a second red commander that's actually pushed. So we might get some variety there with some new, maybe reds is top tier? No. But yeah, we see a lot of commanders explicitly referencing the tribes and what they should do. Go Shintais. Like, oh my god, it creates shrine tokens? That's crazy. I still don't know how to feel about this, honestly. It's just an observation.
Is that a thing we can still do, though, in the year? Like, as we move into the next year, there's so much information on Commander that is there really anything, is it any different? Does it feel any more new discovering certain cards? Everything's out there. There's just so much that I just feel like, at this point, I'm not looking for anything new. I just want, like, support for, like, archetypes and like, you know, certain, like, creatures that just don't have that much love. Maybe they don't need to be Ashcoat, but like I do wish there was a little more like subtlety in like Ashcoat and like and whatnot. But at the same time, I don't think many new things come to Commander anymore, just because everything is like on display. We have information on it. We have more information on Commander decks than we probably do tournaments now. So like it's not hard. To like I just don't. I think that era of like Commander is kind of like gone, where like, oh, there's the mysteries of the vast card pool.
Nah, if you like, for me, it's been 1.5 years, maybe 2 years actually. I still feel like sometimes I find a card and say, oh, this is perfect, or play a card for the first time, even though like Lurking Predators, for example, is not a new card, or like what's the enchantment that tutors out 2 creatures if the opponent has more creatures than you.
Defense of the Heart.
Yeah. When I first found this card and played it in Riku, I felt like, oh, this is amazing. But if I tell somebody, oh, I found this cool card, it's just on a personal level. And I think everybody...
It's new for you.
Makes it, yeah, it's new for... There is a phase for every player where it's new for everybody. And sure, at some point, you reach the state of like, oh, now I know everything. Now I just need support. Sure. I mean, they are happy. They get their support. And actually, we are happy too. We get a lot of support for whatever in all kinds of sets. I just don't like too explicit cards that say like, oh, play this in this deck. That seems a little boring.
And I also think it's just like the really pushed commanders end up reducing the diversity. Like if you just look at EDH rec stats, you got like Edgar Markov, I think, is a big example. The other example I want to use is Lathril, the elf commander. But like Lathril, according to EDH Rec, there's 13,500 decks built around Lathril, making it by far the most popular green-black elf commander and elf commander overall. Then you have something like Nath the Guiltleaf, which is a green-black elf commander that has this, like, it's nowhere near as busted as Lathril or as strong, but it's got this cool, like, weird discard theme. If people discard, you get tokens, and that encourages your elf deck to maybe play, like, Megrim or Ravenman or these other weird cards that you wouldn't play in Lathril. But because Lathril's so good, I think the data, like, backs up the fact that people don't build Nath. They want to build like the good, powerful one. So you never see Megrim in elves because everyone builds Lathril because Lathril is so much stronger. And I think you kind of see the same thing with Edgar Markov, where it's just so heavily played and so popular that Lacia Sanguine Tribute, a vampire in the same colors that has like a weird life gain sub theme and does some cool like different things. No one builds it, and you never get to see the style of cards because the best version is just so good it pushes everyone else out of the format.
But is that a problem with the number of legend or commanders that we're getting, or is that more of an issue of power creep? Because I feel like that's more of the... I feel like more legendaries at least provides you other options. Like for a long time, I don't even know if there were any decent alternatives to Edgar Markov. But like one of my favorite new vampire commanders recently was Evelyn. Evelyn the Covetous, which is Grixis Theft. And I like that it doesn't try to compete with Edgar Markov on power, but it does provide you a totally different experience for vampire tribals. So I really enjoyed that. I know it's a little bit nobody plays her. Obviously, there are some people who do. Like Graham plays Evelyn. And obviously it's much less powerful than Edgar, and that's a big reason why nobody plays Evelyn, I think, is because people are there's a correlation between popularity and power, how powerful something is immediately. But I do that's why I like having more commanders at least you have options for people like us who are really invested in the game, and like we've already played the most popular thing and we want other options. So having a lot of options is kind of cool for me. I do agree that power level is a concern. Like the fact that yes, there's thousands of commander options and yet we keep seeing the same ones keep showing up because there are some that were too pushed. They were just too pushed. So everybody wants to play them. And then your experience, you can see thousands of commanders, but you always end up seeing the same ones over and over again as a power issue.
I feel like it. Oh, go ahead, Graham.
Well, I was going to say, that's why I do actually also, the other side is that I do love the fact that we get so many commanders, because then it's I don't have to only play Edgar.
Exactly.
Being able to play Evelyn is a complete blast. I do like that more of the new commanders are getting a lot more multiplayer-ish. There's a lot of fun there. I still want a true chaos commander, but that's a different thing. So
No.
For me, the really powerful commanders make me feel like some of the other commanders are a waste. Especially, I guess I'm coming from the perspective where I think Legendary is a negative in a lot of cases for 60 card formats. So for me, when they print Lathril, which is just the default green-black elf commander that pretty much everyone's going to play, it makes printing Herald, King of Skemfar, this uncommon ETB, draw you an elf, legendary thing. It makes that a waste. You made it a legend, which made it unplayable in Standard and unplayable in Pioneer and Modern because it's legendary and you're going to legend rule yourself as you're playing it. So you made it a legend, which ruined it for 60 card formats. But because you printed Lathril, which is just a million times better, hardly anyone plays Herald in Commander either because there's just better and more interesting options. So what's the upside of Herald being legendary and existing? In that context, is it right that that's a legend? Is it right that they even made that card? Or should they have made that card in a way that works for 60 card formats because it didn't do anything productive for Commander anyway?
Or should they have pushed it into Shieldred levels?
Or should they have made it Shieldred? Yes.
But this one is a good example because it literally doesn't do anything cool for Commander or something. You can't really build around it. It just searches, looks at the top.
It's a constructed guy. It's like a card that they built for Standard elves, but then they're like, oh no, we need to have 100 legends every set, so let's put legend on here for no reason.
Yeah, this is very boring, and not worth the legend. And it demystifies legend. That is my only concern. Because Thomas, right? It's kind of cool that we get so much diversity, or options. Diversity is kind of suffering from power level. Because sometimes when a new set releases and we play with the commanders from the new set, I type it in Scryfall, look at all the legends, and sometimes I feel I just one or two of these, for my playstyle. And if there were only 13 legends in the whole block, we couldn't do this, and I would play something I'm not really excited to play. So there are upsides to this. So I'm kind of neutral on it. The only thing is demystifying the legend status.
Something for everyone.
Mechanic.
I mean, so we have this tweet from Mark, or this Blogatog answer from Mark Rosewater in our doc here, where someone asked him, is there a limit on the number of legendary creatures printed in a year? I don't want to see more than 50. And Mark said, there's no limit. Why so many? Read the blog. Players are constantly asking for specific commanders to play in niche strategies they enjoy. I think I would agree with that statement. I want them to support niche strategies. I want them to do that. But then for me, it falls apart when you look at Herald or whatever, where it's what niche strategy is this giving Commander players to enjoy? It's just gratuitous legendary status. You're just slapping it on everything, even when it's not doing that. So if you're printing I can deal with the Ashcot to make rats a thing, even if I don't like how strong it might be for the tribe. I can deal with you doing that. I'm glad you made a worm commander when we didn't have one before, supporting these themes that don't have support. But that falls apart for me when you start just slapping it on every uncommon in Standard. It's not doing that. You're not giving players some new niche strategy to enjoy. You're just slapping it on there because you feel like you should slap it on everything. At least that's kind of my take.
I think the most egregious for me in terms of Brothers War, the most recent set from here, is Lauren of the Third Path, which is Tuna White, legendary creature, human artificer, vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, destroy up to one target artifact or enchantment, and you can tap it. You and target opponent each draw a card. This, and it's a 2/1. This is literally just a white Reclamation Sage, which is a green common that we've seen printed for like over a decade now, with vigilance and a tap ability, which is nice, I guess. But it doesn't feel legendary in the slightest. Like, Lorien of the Third Path has lore, and she's a major lore character. So that's great that she has a character, but has a card representation. But this does not feel like a legendary card to me. It just feels like somebody took a Reclamation Sage and was like, let's add a bell and whistle on it that is kind of just fluff, and we'll make it legendary. And it just feels like, why? Like, why is this legendary to me? It doesn't feel like a legendary. And is that a thing? Like, should legendaries feel legendary? Like we talked about, like, or like Mark Roser talks about, like, how mythic should feel mythic, right? Like, that's the rarity, is like they do special things that other rarities can't. Should legendaries have like that requirement, or can they just be like a Reclamation Sage?
I think this is where lore comes in, right? Either that or they're a major player in the story. But there is no story. So, like, that's why...
Well, she has a storyline.
Sure. But, like, specifically, like, let's also be honest here. I mean, I think storylines in Magic are, like, paper thin. So, like, I do think that they either need to do something very unique to themselves, like how Obeka does something, or they need lore. Right? Like, that is something I want from my legendaries personally, because yeah, Seth is right. There are a lot of cards. It's just like, and this card is very good at existing. That's like what it is, right? It is legendary for that. You know, so like that's kind of my main thing. I am a little like curious as to why some things are legendary, why some things aren't, you know, and yeah. So I don't know. I'd like to see them make things a little more purposeful when they get the legendary tag. So yeah, I something needs to happen. Either they get more lore or they're like, and I guess that's okay if they're legendary, if they're like, again, part of a niche like archetype, right? Because they would be legendary at discarding your own cards or something.
I really don't understand why Lorien is a legend. Like, I can see it from like a Vorthos perspective, I guess, but it's obviously not a card hardly anyone is going to play as their commander. Wizards has to know this, right? Are they that out of touch with what people actually play in Commander that they think this is going to be a popular commander? So why is it I mean, I guess maybe the justification is purely just Lorien's a named character that is important to the lore, and that's why it's a legend. But it's so weird to me that there's these things that are made legends that are obviously not designed to be played as your commander, but they still make them legends. Those are some of the most confusing ones for me. So that's why Lorien confuses me. It's obviously a great 99 card, but you don't have to be a legend to be a great 99 card. There's no requirement that you gotta have so many legends in your deck. So I really don't get that one. And there's also an uncommon Lorien in the same set. I don't know if anyone actually rememred that, but there's another one. Yeah, yes. For some reason.
Well, there's like a
more interesting
rare
ability, by the way. Yeah. For Commander, her ability is like more interesting than just Reclamation Saging. Same like Felden Rom-Nom Excavator as well. Just an aggressive 2-drop that is not even cool if you build around it, because the payoff is just not. Why is this legend? If they make like having Felden as a card is pretty cool with this Kane, which looks more like a staff, yeah. But then I guess I want them to design cards for Commander in this place. If they choose to make it legendary, make it into a cool Commander, or make it... I'm not going to push for power creep here. Or make it like Sheodred, where making it non-legendary would actually be a little too crazy. I don't know. Just don't make that many legends. I can wait for the next visit to Dominaria for the Felden, if that... It's just too much. I don't know. It's there's not enough negatives, but it's. If I had to choose, I would say less, or at least cut Haya Loyal Bodyguard, 2 mana, 3/3. Sacrifice it. Legendary creatures you control get +1/+1 and indestructible. Great commander. Great. Why?
So I have a counter argument here. legendary matters is actually a thing in Commander. Like Hayar, I don't know how you say it. Legendary creatures you control get indestructible. That's a perfect example of it, where a Rexage might die, Lauren will survive because she's legendary. Search for Greatness or something. The white legendary tutor, or Time of Need, the green equivalent of it. Those search for legendaries. You can draw cards off like historic things, and Joda, the unifier, cares about legendaries. So it does matter in Commander. So there is relevance to these cards being legendary, even though they aren't good as commanders. Maybe Wizards of the Coast knows that and just wants you to run more legendaries in the 99 to fuel these type of synergy cards.
I mean,
and if it's like artifact creatures, like, oh, it's another type of mechanic slapped on a creature, and now you can tutor it up. It's like, yeah, having enchantment creatures or artifact creatures. It's just another layer of mechanics. But it doesn't feel like legendary should be. If you tell a new player, oh, this one is legendary, they expect it to be strong, not be tutorable with the card or something. Like, oh, I can build around all kinds of legendaries.
Yeah, it's just like another card type. It's like, you know how like, oh, this one's an enchantment. No, this
Tarmogoyf should check for legendary.
Yeah.
I mean, traditionally in Magic, I'm just, again, going back to like the early days when Legends felt special. Legends were epic. Almost all of them. If you go back to Old Border, like pre-modern era, you're looking at like Bladewing the Risen, Phage, Akroma, Kamal. So they were almost like what you would think of as the mythics of the day. These huge like 6, 7, 8 mana, like huge, flashy, epic feeling. And I think that is missing now. Whether or not that's necessary, and maybe the upside of supporting legendary tribal or whatever, the upsides outweigh that. But I do feel like, I don't know, Legend means nothing to me anymore. When it used to mean something. Before, when I saw Legend, I would think, wow, something sweet's going on here. I better check this out. I better investigate this. Now when I see Legend, I do not get that feeling at all. Like not even a little bit. It's just like, oh, okay, like I guess I can't play more than a couple of these in my standard deck.
That's the main thing I care about now. It's just like, well, I guess I can't play more of these.
I do empathize with the standard frustration. Like, I feel like the easy fix for that though is just like cut down on legendaries and standard sets and just shift them all to set boosters and commander precons, and that would be like a win-win.
Well, then they can make them powerful as well. Like that would fix my issue with push the cards into something unique instead of releasing a standard playable cards, just slap legendary on it. Like if they like Green Sleeves, for example, I think it was in the Dominaria set boosters. I play it in Omnath now. It creates 3/3 badges when a land enters the battlefield. Would that be too strong? I don't care, because I can't play it in standard, but it is, they should have done the same with Golos, by the way. That should have not been in a standard set, but it was. And this one was a little pushed.
I think the most egregious one, speaking of standard for me in recent sets, were they made a bunch of uncommon domain commanders, but they're all two-colored, so they're like like super actively bad in Commander. For example, Boartusk Bone Rattle, a 6-mana legendary Tro Shaman. It's a 4/4. It has domain. When it ETBs, you get to reanimate something, mana value equal or less to the number of basic land types you control. So it can only reanimate something mana value 2 or less in a Commander deck because you have color identity issues. And that greatly powers it down is a standard card, and there's literally it's like actively bad is your commander, and there's a whole cycle. There's a Rada, there's a Simic one that when you hit, you get to grab a card from the top of your library equal to your domain or something. Like those cards to me, like it blows my mind. Why? Like they're actively bad.
Good in Joda.
You could use that for every single justify every single legend, and they're not. Oh my goodness!
Yeah, but you're 5 color. It wants you to be 5 color. Kind of.
No one plays those in Joda.
I did in like the $50 Joda. Obviously, I cut it when you go higher budget.
So all right. So I want your opinion on this. I have 6 types of cards these are the ones that I don't think should be legendary. Because where I fall with this is, I want there to be more legends than there used to be. And I want Mark Rosewater's tweet about, providing support for niche archetypes and whatnot. I want that to be a thing. But there's 6 groups of cards that for me, I'm like, okay, these do not need to be legendary. So number 1 is cards that actively hurt other formats. This is going back to the Lagrella thing, or Elias El Kor, Liberator Urza Battlethopter, a card that, like, if it wasn't legend, it's a Shimmer Mirror, which is not a legendary card, but they decide to make it legendary for no apparent reason. Or Baird, a Grivian Recruiter, which would have been a good standard card if it wasn't randomly legendary. So what do you think about that? Like, cards that actively, they want to see play in formats like standard or modern, but making them legend hurts them. Like, do we need Liberator and Baird and Lagrella to be legendary? Is there enough upside in Commander that we need that? Or could we drop a few of those and make them, like, more standard focused?
I mean, I wish Liberator weren't legendary. God, but yeah, like but is it okay if it's legendary if it's lore related? Because isn't Liberator like a giant Urza face boat ship thing? Like what like if there's lore behind it, then sure, it can. I think it could be legendary, right?
Yeah, I don't think it needs a card.
Yeah.
I don't think Liberator versus Faceboat needs a card.
Yo, Faceboat may not need a card, but Faceboat, because it exists and whatnot, like I think that's the only time I excuse it, if there's a story behind it.
That's
right.
That's fair.
Like, although I really wish they designed Hellvolt better.
Yeah.
That card is so bad.
I think I'm very empathetic for standard players and people like who the cards would be so much better if they weren't legendary. And now, like, a lot of the options, because you have a set card pool, right? Like, your card pool almost feels a little bit limited when cool cards are suddenly legendary and you have less cards to play with. Essentially, it's the commander player. The commander need is actually actively harming formats or restricting them to make them smaller than they should be. I like that there's, like, just not just like one is it Spellslinger Commander, but there's like 50 and they all have a little twist to them. I think that's fun. I don't know.
Ooh, that's actually really interesting, because that this brings me to number 2 on my list, which is cards that are essentially boring or worse versions of existing legends. So I think here's a good example that is timely, because we just got our first Phyrexial that will be 1 spoilers. I want to know what you think about Tomer. Jor Kadeen First Gold Warden. 2-mana 2/2, legendary human rebel, trample. When it attacks, it gets +X/+X until end of turn, X is number of equipped creatures you control. Then if Jor Kadeen's power is 4 or greater, you draw a card. When I read this, I think it's like the 5th best Boros Equipment Commander or something. Like, we have very many cards that are in the same colors that are playing with the same card pool, and this is just like a worse version of those. And because it's legendary, it's going to be a lot worse than standard. You can't play 4 copies in your Boros Equipment deck in standard or whatever. What do you think about cards like that? I guess other examples that I had were like Toral's Clever Conductor, which is like another Esper Connive commander that came in the same set as Rafine, which is very popular and strong, but no one's going to play Torals because Rafine's so good. Or even like King Darien. It's like just a boring Selesnya token commander when we got a million King Darien with all the numbers after it. Like, we have a million cool Selesnya token commanders, and this is just like a boring version of a Selesnya token commander. What do you think about cards like that? Like, you said you like that, but what do you think about like Jor Kadeen? Is it an upside that we get the 5th best Boros Equipment Commander, or does it just not matter because everyone's going to play the 4 better ones and no one's going to play Jor Kadeen?
It's, again, conflicted, because I agree that, like, specifically like Boros Equipment, even like Mardu Equipment, there's so many different equipment commanders already that fulfill the exact same thing. And no matter what flavor you want, like if you want to go Voltron, you have Wylith. You want to go wide equipment, you got Akiri. You want to have card advantage attached to an ETB, you have that new one that came out like in Brothers War, I forget its name. This one, it's a little bit different, it wants you to go wide with equipment, and it grows big and it draws a card each turn. is this better than like Akiri for that exact same role? No, I think Akiri is much better. It can draw 3 cards as opposed to 1, and it gives your stuff protection. I still want to put it in the 99 of mine, though. And I like that it's legendary, because then if I search for glory or whatever, can find it. And legendary matter stuff can work with it. So, like, I like it, but I totally agree that I don't want to see it in standard. Like, it should have just not been a legendary, and then that would have been a lot better. Or if you wanted that card to be made as a legendary, then you could have put it in a set booster, or you could have put it in a commander precon, and I think that or a secret lair, even like you're introducing legendaries via secret lairs now. I feel like there would have been better avenues. Like I like legendaries though. Like, and also they could have been accidentally. It could have been an interesting card that was good and a good commander. It's not. I mean, it's fine. It's fine. Like. I don't know. I like legendaries.
I prefer it to printing a stronger one, by the way. Like, I don't think the solution to this is print the best Boros Equipment Commander. Just don't print it, I guess. I'm not sure.
Just interesting in a different axis. Like, I don't want power crept, but I want stuff that gives me enough of a reason to build it as opposed to something else. And I love having other options. Like, I love having multiple Boros Equipment Commanders to choose from if each one does its own thing really well and is enticing to do. That's why I love, again, Evelyn. I keep going back to her, but like, I love having multiple Vampire Commanders, and I choose one based on what specific thing it does, what gameplay experience it provides is different to the other ones. Not necessarily stronger. I like that they're, about even. Usually, that's ideal. I don't think Edgar. You don't want something as equal as Edgar because Edgar's too high. But like, I don't know. I like options. I don't know. That's I like legendaries.
I like that too. Although I don't know if something like the new Jorkadine really does that, like in the way that Evelyn does. Evelyn's really neat because it actually like gives your vampire deck a different play style that Tribe didn't really have access to before. When I feel like Jorkadine is like very much just bad Akiri. Like, you're playing the same exact cards, you're doing the same exact thing. Like I don't know. I don't see that same upside there with like, oh, Evelyn does a cool thing that Edgar Markov doesn't. It's not as good, but at least it's interesting. Jorkadine doesn't feel that way to me. And I think there's go ahead.
Jorkadine just reads as like a redundant kind of effect, right? So you can find Akiri 5 and 6, right? And the problem here is like Boros is now just getting boring, right? Like, I do believe that they just it is all the same thing every time in Boros. Something with attacking, put an equipment on it, it'll draw a card, right? Like it'll do it.
I love it.
So I mean, yeah, like that, and that's great. Like for people that like want to jam that kind of card, right? And like
you draw a card off Kaldra.
Yeah, yeah. It is a way to get like your way to, like, again, carry 5 and 6. So
yeah,
I think there's like we've hinted at like the tension, which is for Commander, as Tomer has mentioned, having pretty much every card be legendary is strictly better. There's no downside to that card, really, to that card being legendary because it's singleton, and then you get the upside of, I'm playing a Jodah deck, so legendaries matter. I have a tutor that can get a legend, so being a legendary is an upside. On the other hand, in 60 card formats, it's like flipped on its head where being legendary is just like strictly worse and makes the format worse. So we're trying to like balance, or Wizards is trying to balance these two things where you have Commander that wants everything possible to be legends, and then you have 60 card formats where you want nothing really to be legends, to have max power. And I think right now Commander's just winning out. Like, I don't want to see them stop printing a bunch of legends because I want us to have tons of new commanders to play, but I feel like they've just went a little bit too ham. What about the category of unforgettable or forgettable uncommon commanders? Like, these are cards that you probably don't even remember exist. Naomi, Pillar of Order, the Boratuk Bone Rattler we talked about, the new Rada, like all these cards are just like, they're random uncommons that I have never seen anyone playing Commander, and I think the EDH rec stats back that up. And no one's going to even give them a chance in 60 card formats, in part because they're legendary. What's the upside of having these cards be legendary? Or even existing, for that matter? Like,
I mean, I don't know. Like, there's a lot that are decently interesting that people will play. Like, there's Sir Conrad was an uncommon. There was the red one that was I forget its name, but
That's true. Then like Rocco,
fine.
people like Rocco, the
Yeah.
tutor uncommon.
Tatyova was an uncommon, by the way.
I
So
remember.
she was
That's
kind of
true.
popular.
Oh, speaking of Dominaria, when we went to Dominaria again, like in 2018 or whatever, and they printed Uncommon Legends, I was hyped because it was different. It was like, wow, they don't do this. It's been since Kamigawa since we've gotten like a bunch of Uncommon Legends. It was really fun, but then they just put like 10 plus in every set, and now it's just like now it's normal. It's like the full art lands, where if you do full art lands every set, they're not special anymore. They're just the norm, and people don't get excited about them anymore. I feel like Uncommon Legends are like that for me. Like when you do them sparingly, like, oh, this set's theme is Legends, so Dominaria or Kamigawa, so you get a bunch of them, it's really neat. But when you do it every set, that's just kind of like, okay, whatever. Like,
Time out. 1 second. I have to get the door. I have to let the boyfriend in. 1 second. Sorry.
He'll let his boyfriend.
5 seconds.
Wait, why? He doesn't have a key? I'm so confused. Why do you
I
need
don't
to let your boyfriend in?
That's what I'm saying.
Does he have no hands? He cannot work a doorknob.
We have to. You know what it is? We've never seen Tomer's boyfriend, so we can only assume it's a cat.
It's actually a cat the whole
All right, I'm
time.
back.
Wait, Tomer, we've
right,
just been debating this. Why do you have to let your boyfriend in? Can he
You
not
have
work?
one pair of keys.
Oh,
I keep saying.
okay, that makes more sense.
So he is not a cat.
He's not a cat.
All right.
All right, let me get through the last. There's 3 more categories really quick, and then I'll let you guys talk about whatever. The other 3 categories, and I'm questionable about being legends, is the cookie cutter OP legends we talked about before. Like and this is, I guess, more of a power level concern than a too many legend concern. But stuff like Asco, as cool as it is to see rats getting support, if you make those commanders too good, then you
Seth, what
can't
did you call
really.
him?
Ashko. Maybe it's
Ashko, yeah.
Ashko. Let's go with that.
I just wanted to
Ashcott.
verify I had the
Ashcott.
same version.
The new rat from Jumpstart. But if you make those commanders too good, it makes it harder to support those tribes again in the future and have it be exciting. Like if you put the Edgar, then it's a lot harder to make the next vampire commander. So I think you got to be careful with that. Cards that don't work as legends or as commanders. For me, the biggest example of this, oh my god, I hate this card, Ave Progenitor Ooze from Modern Horizons, which is like its wording is twisted around to try to make it somehow work as a legend, where it has to make non-legendary copies of itself, when if you just didn't make it a legend, you could have like 3 words on the card. It could just say storm and it would be really cool. But instead, to make it a legend, it has like a half a paragraph of text on it to try to make it work as a commander. So those ones kind of bother me. And I would also put like the domain commanders we were talking about that are just like actively bad as your commander because of how color identity works. And then also cards that are meant to show up in the 99, which I had Lauren on this, but also Hajar, like Phil mentioned, or Benny Braxuologist. Like, that's a really cool card, a card that we needed for commander to support token decks as a card draw option, but it's just not the kind of card people are going to play as their commander. They're going to play it in the 99. So I don't know why you want to make it a legend necessarily, or why it needs to be a legend. So those were the
a
groups.
lot of Benny Brax. I don't know how
Really?
popular is that in Commander.
Benny
I mean,
Brax
I
is
agree.
pretty
I
popular.
agree with the
On-
statement, but
Yeah.
Pretty popular.
I'm just nitpicking.
I agree with
792.
Wizards heard League of Legends. What they didn't understand was that didn't mean everything needed to be legend.
Yeah.
So for me,
League of Legends is
I
popular.
wanna
Please.
Get on it. It's an esport.
Yeah.
I want Wizards to print a lot of legends. I want them to be cool and unique, and I want Commander players to love them. But I think that the pendulum has swung too far in the legendary direction, and I would like to see it. It doesn't got to go back to 20 or even 50, but maybe you swing it back towards like 200 a year or something instead of 300. Like, I don't want to see it keep snowballing in the other direction either. And this is purely because other formats exist. If Magic was only Commander, make them all legends. Like Tomer said, it's probably better for Commander. Make every creature a legend for that matter at this point. But because we still are trying to support multiple formats, and those formats are impacted by this too, I think swing the pendulum back a little bit more towards like the middle. It doesn't got to be 20 legends a year, but it also probably doesn't need to be 360 legends a year. Somewhere in between might be this sweet spot. And if they're going to cut down, that's where I'd like to see them cut. The random uncommons, the cards that don't actually work as your commander, so it makes it hard for me to see the upside of them being legendary. Those would be the cards that I would like to see them not make as many of, but still keep the cool, exciting ones, the ones that meet Mark Rosewater's tweet about like people supporting their niche strategies and all that stuff. Do all that stuff, but you can do that without, printing all these horrible ones that no one wants either.
Well, I can guarantee the Storm Ooze was because somebody asked Mark Rosewater or somebody else in design to be like, I need an Ooze commander. And they'll be saying, well, what about Mimeoplasm? They'll be like, no. I want an Ooze commander that specifically duplicates itself, like an Ooze. And they're like, all right, that's very specific. We'll put it on the board.
That's probably true, actually.
And
I
I'm
guess
still
like
waiting.
people are just getting that, like if that's what Mark Rosewater says. He says on his blog talk, everybody's constantly asking him things. So maybe that's why we get so many very specific things that are like trash, but like they're good because one person specifically asked Mark Rosewater on his blog for this very unique thing. And he's like,
honestly,
all right, I'll make it happen.
We can't really complain about these types of commander. And the problem with the Storm Ooze is really the wording. Like, it just looks clunky, but technically I guess it fulfills a role for duplicating oozes. This one might have been a little too niche. But the commanders I really disapprove of is like the ones that have zero, like the Reclamation Sage, for example. But if Mark Rosewater wants to, I need a commander that's a Mirror March. Honestly, that would be amazing because we don't have this on a commander. But if they print 300, 400 commanders next year, surely we get one. And then we get the power crap one of this next year. So, I guess for some people it's actually good.
We should read back the blog and see if someone asked for Legendary Rec Sage. That would confirm our theory if there's one random request for Legendary Reclamation Sage.
I think the bigger concern for me from this year, and the takeaway from the tweet at least, was I think the scariest thing for me, the thing that I really wanted to dial back on, is the wordiness of cards. Yeah. It's without a doubt the word count has been expanding dramatically. And I think this is a serious problem. Like, the longer it takes for you to understand what a card does means more often you're going to be using it improperly just because you misunderstood the card because it is more complicated. And I think that's going to lead to a lot more feel bads in any format, really. Like standard, if you just misread the card and you do a play that was an error just because you misunderstood, that leaves you with a bad experience. And likewise with Commander. I remember there was one time somebody left a comment in like the Transformers episode on Commander Clash, like, oh, you didn't read all the cards, why are you making all these mistakes? And it's like, these cards are literally two cards put together on one card. Like, it's not like, and I think a dual face card should be like the word count should be equal to one card, right? Like, it should be simple on the front, simple on the back, or a full card on the back and a land, just a normal land, enters tapped or whatever on the back. Like, keep it reasonable. Once you're just putting two cards and stapling them together and saying it's dual face, like, it's gross, and it's so hard to manage. Like, the complexity creep is really scary for me. That's what I'm most worried about for 2023.
I'm not reading them. Like, when Strixhaven released and the Deans came out, I just read the first half, thought, well, this is probably not good enough. I read it when somebody plays it against me in a draft or something. And
it's even single face cards like are getting just too much. It's just too much.
Can be
like,
with
stop
scroll
trying
bars
to do everything
in the cards.
Richard recently brung this up on the Goldfish podcast, talking about how in Vegas, there were so many cards with so much text that he had just never seen before because of the amount of text and the amount of cards that are being printed each year. And he said it made like his experience playing Commander much less fun to not know what the cards were and not know what the cards did and feel like there's just so many words and so many cards that he can't keep up with it. It just made, he said he would get to the point where he's just like, I don't know if I'm dead, tell me, like, I don't know what your cards do, just go ahead. And this is Richard, who runs MTG Goldfish and like is very enfranchised in Magic. So if people like him are becoming overwhelmed with the amount of words, like imagine someone that's playing more casually. Krim, didn't you say you had a friend who like didn't realize MDFCs were lands or something recently?
Yeah, I was playing. I was like, they were brand new to the game of Magic, and they didn't even know that the backside of the spell was a land. Right, so 'cause, like, you
Never
played sleeves,
checked.
so how would you know that, right? Like, so it's totally it's a little, it's getting really wordy. It's getting really wordy. We're getting to like Yu-Gi-Oh levels of text, so it's getting, I don't know, the formatting, something's changed, but like, God, there's a lot of text nowadays.
I mean, the Strixhaven Deans are probably the classic example of this, where it literally just feels like two cards stapled together, and both cards have a huge paragraph of text. I don't think I could tell you what most of them do at this point still.
I don't know what any of them
couldn't
do.
tell you what
I
most
only
of
know
those Transformers do.
Valentine's front side. I forget that Valentine has a backside.
Yeah. Oh, the Transformers are like that too, where they both like kind of do
Oh,
different,
yeah.
like sort of related things, but they do different things and they have a ton of text. So yeah, that's
At least they
probably a
can
big
transform
concern as well.
on
They
the
can.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the Deans were not even worth all these words because they are so boring as commanders. The Boros one is kind of interesting, the 2-drop that spins into free spells. But
yeah.
otherwise, they were very underwhelming and so much text. I still don't know what they do.
So let me ask you guys this. What number, you could pick any number, what number of Legends would you like to see a year?
69.
We're
Nice.
420. Meh.
420 or 69.
420 is a bit much. That's why.
Increase it. Not enough.
362 this year. The last couple of years around 190. Before that, under 100. What would your ideal number be? You're in charge of WotC. You're Mark
Depends on-
Rosewater.
So for me, it's 4 to 5 standard sets a year. 69 commander just because it's funny. Just not too many per set. It's just not too many, way less sets and a bit less commanders. I'm actually not, as mentioned, I might find some complaints here and there, but they are still not, they will never be special again for me. So then just go ahead and print them. Just make them cool. And not too many. I think the problem is how many sets we got, not how many commanders we got in the end. And 69, haha, nice.
I honestly just want it to be like, if the commander serves a purpose, like actually a purpose, I want it printed. I'm okay with it being printed, right? Like Transformers, all that stuff, that makes sense. They're all legendaries, but Skemfar, there's just the random stuff that doesn't matter. Like, why do those cards exist, right? So if it serves a purpose, or it has a story, or it's going to be a main character in your animated show that you're definitely working on and putting as a priority, I would love to see it. So like, yeah, like that's all, but don't just, or I guess balancing, but just don't put a 2-mana, like, 0/1 that adds a colorless as a legendary. I don't know. Any kind of random stuff like that's just kind of a waste of space. Just make it normal so that you could at least play 4 copies of it in like constructed, like 60 card constructed.
I mean, I'm totally on board with you guys. Like, I'm very pro. I like lots of legendaries because I like legendary tribal and legendary synergy stuff on the commander side, and I like having other options. But I would want the number to go to a point where it doesn't have to encroach too much on standard sets. So something lower than what we currently have. And I'd love to just see the commanders show up in set boosters, show up in pre-constructed decks. I would just like less products in general. That's the real takeaway for me. Is like, I just want less magic cards, more reprints, less magic cards, more skins. Like, you can skin it up all you want, every new version, every collector, foil etched, holographic, I don't know, like all the different versions. But stop giving me new cards and just give me cool versions of existing cards. That would be great. Just lower everything down a little bit, and yeah, so I guess lower the amount of commanders too in the same breath.
I think for me, it's kind of just agree with Tomer for the most part. Like, I think the overall number should come down a little bit, but I think the big thing is where they're being printed. Like, I think that a lot of this problem is solved by Wizards focusing Premier sets on non-Commander formats, because we have so many Commander products these days that I don't think you have to make the standard sets also as Commander focused. And plus, I was just looking at like the Brothers War. Let's say you were designing Brothers War more for standard than for Commander. You'd still have a ton of sweet legends like Urza and Mishra and Titania, Gix. Those are all like obvious legendary creatures. Like those wouldn't have to change at all. But then when you get further down the list, like the Lauren tier of commanders and the Liberator Urza's Battlethopter tier of commanders, like those are some of the cards that it's like, well, if you really want that effect to be a commander, put it in the precon deck, or, you know, make it non-legendary so they can actually support other formats. So I think overall number down a bit, but it's mostly just like where they print them. Like I'd rather see them focus them in the Commander products rather than standard products.
Also, as an addendum to that, I don't think we need 3 Urzas and 3 Mishras in the same set.
I forget that there's
Don't
like
need
actually
them.
uncommon versions.
There's an uncommon, there's a
That makes
rare,
sense, though, right?
there's the meld. Wait, is there 4 actually? There's the Precon Mishra, there's the Precon Mishra, and there's the Meld Mishra, there's the Unearth Mishra, and there's the Uncommon Mishra.
Yeah, 3 in the main set, 1 in the Commander precon. So there's 4
4
of
total.
each.
Urza is the Precon Urza, Meld Urza, Anthem Urza, and Uncommon Urza. So yeah, 4 each. Jeez, why? Why?
I will give
I
them
guess
a
that
little
makes
bit of
sense
a pass for flavor purposes. Remember when we did the core set that was like the Chandra core set, and there was 1 in every rarity? Like, I don't know. I don't want to see it every time, but making the Brothers
makes
War
sense
feel
here.
very
It makes
Urza
sense.
imagery. I'll give them a pass for that personally.
Sure, whatever. Whatever. It's fine.
Although, like, do the little kid ones really need to be legendary? Are you even a legend at that point if you're like 10 years old and like looting away uncommon spells? I don't
They
even
were
know if you're
prodigy.
counted as a
Born
legend.
a legend, like a prodigy of Rin's
Yes.
prodigy.
Okay.
See, by the way, this would have been a perfect set to have a young Urza and a young Mishra that were flip cards like Jace and all of them from Origins.
Ooh.
Where as opposed to just the random Deans that are like 92 essays.
I mean, we got Meld. That's also pretty cool, honestly.
Meld
No,
was
Meld is dope.
Meld was my favorite part. I
Meld's
love bring back Melds. All right, I want to see more Melds. You just take a. Picture this. I'm pitching this. This is going to be the new bestseller for a commander deck. All right, you have one piece is going to be an angel,
thought you were talking
one
about the
piece is a
anime.
demon, and you put them together and you get the one-winged angel. It's Sephiroth. Oh my god! All right, sell it. Easy, easy money.
No, what you
That
really
one's
want
free,
is
Wizards.
what you really want is Cauldra Meld, where if you
Yes.
get all 3
my
Cauldra
God.
pieces, it flips around into a huge Cauldra. That would be so sweet.
It needs to
One
cost like
long
10
And the
mana to
avatar will
activate.
the avatar will be the token that was terrible from way back then.
Oh, yes.
I needed to be the terrible token art. Oh god, yes. All right.
Is there,
All right.
it's a bit off topic, but is there a
yes.
paper version of this token?
No, it doesn't exist. Unfortunately, they've denied me that satisfaction for too long. That's why I keep saying I also want more secret layers, by the way. I keep saying too much product. I want more secret layers of reprints because eventually they do like a secret layer like 5 a month or whatever the hell. I want more. I want every single day because eventually they're gonna run out of ideas that they have to do Cauldra. Eventually, it's an inevitability that they will reach a point where it's like we ran out of ideas for January. Interns, give me some ideas. What are the cards we haven't reprinted yet as a secret layer? And then on that fateful day, somebody will say, we haven't done Cauldra yet. And
Tomer,
boom, we'll get
what
so
would
much
you
Cauldra.
do?
It's pretty likely to happen, actually. That seems realistic.
Inevitable. It's inevitable.
What would you do if instead of that they've said, "Oh, we talked about it. Instead, we made the Aquarius lands and all the astrology lands."
Whatever.
instead."
I'd say do it. Do all the zodiac signs. Do 5 versions of them, because eventually we're gonna run out of ideas, and it will be culture time, baby. It's
Tomer, you
inevitable.
keep believing, but I hope they do it. I hope they.
I
do
have
it, though.
patience. Be it 1 year, a couple months, I don't know yet. But we're gonna get culture secret. Mark my words. I am called shot. It's happening.
I think you should just message Mark Rosewater's blog every day until they do. Yeah, Calder Secret Lair when? We know that works for commanders. We got confirmation of that. So
maybe I just have to say Calder Commander when.
Tomer
When do I get a Commander Cauldra?
Name the accounts like Budget Commander Numerical.
Yeah.
One, two, three.
Dr. Anime 1, Dr. Anime 2, Dr. Anime 3.
Spam him. All right. That's a plan. All right. That's it for our show, everybody. We talked about commanders and how many there are. But we want to let us know your opinions, obviously. These are just 4 of us, 4 opinions. Obviously, we all look at Commander in a different lens. All of us have different wants and desires from the format that we all enjoy. So let us know what your thoughts are. Are you happy with the number of commanders being printed this year? Would you like to see the number go up or down or say neutral? How would you like to see them printed? Just let us know in the comment section. Oh, what do you think about Jor Kadina as your commander? I think he's neat. And Culture Secret Lair 1. All right. That's it. That's it, everybody. Hope you all had a good New Year's. We'll be back next week with something TBD. All right. Bye.